Well, it's been a day later. I think I can honestly say I haven't stopped thinking about this film, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. I haven't stopped thinking about this film since I saw it last night. It's been in my head all day today. I've been at work today, telling people what I've seen, how it made me feel. Even nearly getting choked up at one point in the office explaining the ending and the final scenes. I'm not one for giving any sort of constructive review, not trained to do that. If you're after some sort of critical analysis of the film, you're probably in the wrong place. Yesterday, when I did my straight out of theatre reaction, looking back at that when I was editing it together, I was very much just kind of like, I've made no sense whatsoever there. I've just said it's amazing over and over again. I'll try not to make the same mistake here. Chances are I will say that a lot though. But yeah, kind of wanting to hit into thoughts and feelings about the film. I've had near on 24 hours to kind of mull it over now, absorb it. I will need to see it again. Obviously because I loved it so much, I'm going to be seeing it again. But Baz Luhrmann's style, the speed at which the film moved along, it's only taken me until now, I think, to absorb what I've just seen. And at least I think I've absorbed what I've seen. Chances are I'm nowhere near. But yes, thoughts and reactions coming up. Before I do, hit that like button, would you? And if you're feeling really generous and you haven't already, tap subscribe and hit that notification bell. But thoughts and reactions coming up. Promise I won't go on too long, so please stick around. So hey, yes, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for pressing that play button. Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. So much has been said already. Just opened as the #1 film in the US over the weekend. Wasn't sure to begin with. There was a sort of tie in place with Top Gun. But the Elvis movie came out at, I think, 31.5 million compared to Top Gun's 29.6 or something like that. So it's at the #1 spot where it deserves to be. This movie was beautiful. This movie was stunning. And like I said yesterday in my out of theatre review, just completely floored me. When the film began, I don't think I'd quite prepped myself for Baz Luhrmann's style, his signature style, which I'm fully aware of. Seen Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, Great Gatsby. I know what I'm in for, I know what I'm dealing with. Just to even starting with that later point of Colonel Tom Parker, 1997, threw me off straight away. And we know that it's Colonel Tom narrating the story, I'd heard that before. Wasn't quite sure of how that was going to be framed. But yeah, we have Colonel Tom in hospital, telling us his story. Labels himself as the villain of the piece, which by the end of the film, you very clearly see some of the acts there, the manipulations are just horrific. And it's a strange one, because I think the family, maybe Priscilla, came out previously, or I'm sure I'd read something that she'd said that Colonel Tom was like a father to Elvis. And this paints a very, very different picture. There are at least 2 moments in the film where I think there's some genuine feeling from him to Elvis. And it was almost like within Tom Hanks's performance, he was kind of second guessing his motivations for brief moments. And then that snowman came back again. When the trailers first hit, certainly on my first ever trailer reaction, the first trailer that came out, I really wasn't sure about Tom Hanks with that accent and that performance. It felt very jarring. It completely worked within the context of the movie. Just astounding what he put Elvis through. I was always familiar, I'd read bits and bobs, but when you see it in the context of the film and there's that narrative there, and even if there are some scenes that are probably played up for dramatic license, from what I'm led to believe, the whole scene in the Hall of Mirrors never happened, but for the purposes of the film it worked really well. But those manipulations definitely did his job as a promoter, just putting Elvis's name on absolutely anything and everything, even the I Hate Elvis badges. That's some savvy thinking there. But then just from those early stages, and then Elvis very much being his cash cow and his own gambling problems, that Elvis's talent was paying for. We get infuriated at the screen, and you kind of keep seeing Elvis ready to leave him and then fall for the next thing again, then the next thing. And by the time we get to Vegas and he's signing that contract on that napkin, it's just awful, terrifying to watch. Terrifying is the wrong word, but just absolutely so infuriating and upsetting to watch. And you see Elvis on stage giving it his all, and Colonel Tom's just signing his life away. And then in a very underhand way convinces him to do it. I'm jumping too far ahead. I told you these were just going to be varied thoughts dancing around. This isn't going to work in a straight line. Apologies in advance. Let's just jump back to that main performance of the film. in Austin Butler as Elvis. Can't think I've seen anything like it. I genuinely can't think I've seen anything like it. We know from behind the scenes interviews that how much work he put in, like 1.5 years, 2 years of study, vocal training, and it just paid off completely. Just an utterly mesmerising performance. From that young Elvis on stage, the hayride, growing in confidence, knowing that he wants more, that he can be great. And as the film progresses, we kind of grow with him. And the performance just gets stronger and stronger. It's incredible. When we get to the scenes with Elvis with his film career, and there's that montage, how well done was that? It looked like the same camera stock. Chances are it was all shot digitally, but it just looked like the same camera stock. And I had to double take when... Was he walking through a train or something like that? And it was introducing all the other cast members, and he was singing. He looked just like Elvis. The tan, the gloss, everything. I had to double take, and I was really like, is this actual footage? Is this real footage? And then I had to look and realised it was Austin. It wasn't Elvis. Just for a few brief moments. And I know there were scenes throughout the film where there were certain shots where the real Elvis seemed to be spliced in just for split seconds. Some of the performances on stage, you kept seeing it flash. But just absolutely astounding. And by the time that we get to the NBC Special, and I've watched the original NBC Special a lot and listened to it a lot, it was pretty much perfect. Completely mind-blowing, that whole performance. All the way, medley with Hound Dog, blue suede shoes, everything. And then all the behind-the-scenes drama, which I knew bits, even though I've watched it so many times, I kind of never really read up on the history. And I knew that there were sways that it was meant to be a Christmas special and that Elvis didn't want that. But I didn't really know the dynamicism of how all of that played out. And again, I'm aware it's a film, and I know there's probably a lot of dramatic license throughout. But it was the point. That 68 special was where it just seemed to cement Elvis's moment of him recapturing who he was, and you just completely felt it. And then by the time we get to that end, where the Christmas decorations and the set is there, and Colonel Tom thinks he's got his way, and then the camera shifts along, and we see Elvis in that white suit, and then he begins to sing If I Can Dream. That performance was unlike anything. That performance was incredible. Just every mannerism, every body movement, it matched it perfect. Voice goes high. It matched it perfectly. It was just, when he reaches that crescendo at the end and the arms go up and not even going to attempt to copy it. It's wow. It was just incredible, and that was the point. I'd been there along the ride, and you kind of empathise with Elvis and everything that he's been going through, but you're enjoying the ride at the same time. That was the point in the film where it just completely got me, and I got it, and the emotions began to kick in. And then we moved to Vegas, and then we get the 6-week residency, and that performance there, That's All Right. It's on the soundtrack album as well, and I can't stop listening to it. But just the bum 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 bum. Now the bass. Bum 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 bum. And a higher octave. I'm losing myself in the moment again. It's that was stunning. And then we get to Suspicious Minds, and it's at risk of repeating myself, completely forgot I was watching Austin Butler. I thought I was watching Elvis. It was just the performance was absolutely spot on, and I think I was close to having tears of joy in that moment. And it was just wow, it was absolutely incredible. And it's just, we reach that high peak, and I have such a high peak of joy when we get to that point. And then going back to what I was saying before, we take that sinister turn where you kind of know this is the beginning of the end for Elvis as we knew him. And I apologise for using that phrase. That's not offensive to anyone, but it's just, Elvis was back and he was loving it, and he felt like he was in control. And all the while he wasn't. And we jump year to year to year. And we see the change in him, and we see the marriage breakdown, and we see the other women. And it's kind of hinted at a little bit, kissing the audience members, and Priscilla just sitting there watching it all happen. And it's just, like I said in my previous review, I think that has to be really confronting to watch, both for Priscilla and for Lisa Marie. There's the scene where they have the main argument where she finds him, drugged up in Vegas, and she's telling him she's leaving him, and he's sitting on the stairs crying, and then they hug before she leaves. And it's just, like I said, how confronting would that be for Priscilla to watch back, like a dramatisation of that moment, and then for Lisa Marie, who was only a young girl at that time, just kind of see how fallible her dad had become. It was completely heartbreaking to watch. Then we move along to that whole breakdown between Elvis and Colonel Parker. It's not Colonel, his name's not Parker, his name's not Tom. And how manipulated he was again. And just that huge bill, that $8 million+ bill for everything that he'd done. It completely shafted him. And that thing about how all he cared about was Elvis being on stage. Just pump more drugs into him, get him up, get him on stage, get him through. It was awful to watch. And then we get the screen announcements at the end of the film telling us that Elvis had passed away. And again, I'd read somewhere how the film was ending, where they didn't show that, which I was thankful for. And then we moved to that scene of him singing Unchained Melody. And I think this was the bit that got me the most, where we saw Austin Butler, lots of prosthetics and makeup, showing Elvis at that stage. Was it 2 or 3 months before he passed away? That performance? Something like that. And you saw him there, and there was still something in the eyes, that performance there, but that sadness. And like I said, it started off with Austin, and then it cut to the real Elvis in that moment. And that's when it just completely got me. And I was trying to explain this to somebody at work today, but even as I was explaining how this played out, the emotions came back to me, and I was sitting in an office at work, and I could feel my eyes glassing over and my throat sort of seizing up a little bit, and I was just like it is now. Yeah, like it is now. Let's pause for a beat. It was completely heartbreaking. Funnily enough, I'd watched that performance on YouTube just 2 weeks before. I was showing my son and daughter Elvis clips, trying to get my son excited to come and watch the film with me. Hopefully he does. And I watched that performance. But seeing it on this IMAX screen, and then seeing the whole drama of everything that had gone on before in Elvis's life, knowing that you're watching a film, and there's almost an element where you forget that Elvis was a real person, because you're watching this film and it's so stylized, and it moves at such a brisk pace. You get lost in the film, but you kind of know it's a film. But then when you cut to the real Elvis, and you suddenly remember that it was a real person, and everything that you've seen happened to him, and then you watch him on stage there, drinking from the Coke cup, the big towel round his neck, and just getting that last note out, somebody holding the microphone for him, and then a montage of all the other clips of Elvis, and you remember he was a real person. Just so upsetting, and you kind of you think about what an amazing singer, performer he was. And then you go back to that scene in the car at the airport, well, by the plane with Priscilla and Elvis. And there's that thing of him where he doesn't think that he's going to be remembered. He didn't have that confidence there. Early days in his career, telling people he wants to be great, he wants to be best and wants to be remembered. And then we get to that scene in the car where he's a shell of his former self, and he doesn't think people are going to remember him, and he just wants to be remembered, and he doesn't think he's good enough. It's kind of what a legend, but at the same time, how completely and utterly sad things ended. It's just complete emotional roller coaster, this film. And kind of that's what I got from it. I hope I haven't just narrated plot points beat for beat. But like I said, I kind of just wanted to talk about the emotions of it all and how it made me feel, really, rather than review the film itself. I kind of went in before thinking that I was going to love the film, wanted to love the film, and it didn't disappoint me on any level. It assaulted me, where I came out and didn't know what to think, and I just felt almost shell-shocked by the whole experience, as you probably saw if you see my previous video from last night. But yeah, here it's 24 hours on, nearly, less than 24 hours, but it stayed in my head the whole day. the whole day. On the way to work, I had the soundtrack playing in my car again. In the office when there was no one else in there, may have accidentally started playing it again with the door shut, and just it stayed with me. Spoke to my mum earlier. I took my parents to the film last night as well, and she said the same thing. It stayed with her all day today. And at one point, she said to me that she didn't like the film. And what do you mean you didn't like it? She's like, what he did to him. You know what Colonel Tom did to Elvis. So you didn't like what Colonel Tom did. You didn't. Well, then you didn't not like the film. Yeah, so it was like she had real problems of, not surprisingly, what Colonel Tom Parker did to Elvis. They said he was the villain of the piece. He told the audience he's the villain of the piece, and he really was. But the film as a whole, just completely and utterly dazzling. Just the direction, like I said, almost too quick for me to begin with. Maybe I'm getting old, but it was just the dynamicism of those camera movements, and even as we go on, the signage that was lifting off and the streets and how those performances were played. We were in that club with Little Richard. That was incredible. And just that whole time that he's hanging out with B.B. King and what he's learning from him. Just the film showed him to be that really deeply emotional, caring person who may have got lost along the way through no real fault of his own. Jumping back again, those moments with the Martin Luther King assassination and the JFK, and how the world reacted to that and how it affected him. And then going into that If I Can Dream performance. It's just something else. Just something else. Do you remember that part at the beginning of the video where I said I wouldn't go on too long? Yeah, yeah. Baz Luhrmann's Elvis is a beautiful film. I think some people might not get on so well with it just because of the ostentatious style of it. I was a little bit nervous about the modern music at first, but it worked completely within the context of the film. Not an Eminem fan. Still worked. I'm glad they saved it. I think they just saved that one to the end credits, as far as I can remember. But for me, and I know a lot of you that have already been in touch, it was a completely beautiful and emotional experience. And I don't want to put too much emotional credence on it all. I know it's a film. It's not something that's going to change lives, but But it is just an amazing experience. And I think I posted yesterday when I got home, I posted on Twitter and Instagram, just kind of some thoughts. And it's just, if you are an Elvis fan, chances are you're going to be seeing this movie already. I know a lot of you have already seen it 2 or 3 times, but you should see it for Austin Butler's performance alone. And if you're not an Elvis fan, you should go and see this movie for Austin Butler's performance alone. He needs to get that Oscar. I have no doubt at all that he's going to be nominated. But I can't remember the last time I've seen an actor embody a role as much as that and live and breathe it. From what I understand, he's even still got that twang in his voice where he's just performed it for so long that he hasn't been able to shift it sometimes in interviews. Which I love. I am going to leave it there. I think I have gone on too long. I know I haven't glossed over half of the movie. I haven't gone through all the childhood stuff, and then Elvis meeting Priscilla, the love story there, his relationship with his mother, which was also important. I haven't hit into any of that stuff. It informs everything else that happens in the second half of that film. How the snowman just completely manipulated that family and put his dad in charge of all the business dealings, knowing that he could just control that whole situation at any time, and knowing about the dad's prison record. And as soon as the opportunity came up, that was thrown back in their face, and he had them against the ropes, and they had to continue. I'm digressing again, I'm going back. Like I said, no structure this whatsoever, dancing thoughts, dots not always connecting, so apologies. But like I said, I did just want to talk about it a little bit more, and now I've kind of been thinking about it a lot. Really, it's kind of just me really just airing thoughts, random thoughts and feelings. Yes, I will stop. Baz Luhrmann's Elvis is a beautiful, stunning achievement. Go and see it if you haven't seen it already. If you have seen it already, go and watch it again. I know some of you already have. Some of you are going even more, 3, 4, 5 times. I intend to watch it again this week. This was an incredible experience. I'm so glad I got to see it on a big screen. And I'm so glad it got made. And Austin Butler, all the plaudits are coming to you. You deserve every success. Baz Luhrmann, you've done it again. Tom Hanks, didn't know you could be so horrible. Thank you so much for watching. I wonder if you stuck to the end here to hear this. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please do click that like button. If you want to subscribe, do that as well. Follow me along for the ride. It's been emotional. Thanks. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.